Council and the Office of Mayor. This forum is sponsored by the St. Peter League of Women Voters, a local chapter of the state and national nonpartisan grassroots organization. My name is Edie Thorstensen, and I will moderate this forum, which comes your way live tonight from North Mankato's number 2 fire station. It is being live streamed as well as recorded for later viewing on accessktv.org/YouTube and on the League of Women Voters of St. Peter's Facebook page. I have some additional information for later viewing. Tune into Charter 181, Consolidated 507 HD or 7. Questions for tonight's forum have been submitted online by the public and also formulated by the League based on its research. Additional questions for the candidates may be submitted tonight and tonight only to the website you see at the top of your screen, LWV St. Peter at lwvmn.org. All questions are the property of the League of Women Voters. There are 4 candidates for North Mankato City Council whose names will appear on the ballot. Nancy Goodwin, Matt Peterson, Billy Steiner, who is not able to be here this evening, and Jim Whitlock. Of these, only 2 will be elected. There are 2 candidates for the office of mayor, only one of whom, Mark Dean, is present. His opponent is Kim Spears. Candidates, you will begin by introducing yourselves and explaining why you have chosen to run. You are allowed 1 minute for your opening statements. We will then proceed to the questions. I will call on you to answer, and you will have 2 minutes for your response. By the way, the order of candidate responses will vary, so you won't know until I call on you. Our timekeeper will mark the time, holding up a yellow sign when 15 seconds remain, and a red sign when the time is up. This procedure will be used throughout the forum. Following the question period, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks. We'll begin with an opening statement from Mr. Dean.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum, and to all of the participants this evening, welcome to Fire Station number 2. I initially ran for mayor because I was committed to North Mankato and dedicated to progress. Over the last 10 years, our council has balanced the improvements in our infrastructure and in our quality of life amenities. We've also improved the city's financial position by reducing our debt by 40% and reducing our property tax rate by 5%. We know that coming out of the pandemic, we will have some challenging times ahead. And my experience and dedicated, demonstrated leadership will be a valuable commodity going forward. And that's why I'm again running for mayor of the city of North Mankato. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Ms. Goodwin.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you for having me here this evening. I appreciate the League of Women Voters so much. I've been at a couple of your other forums, and it really does make a difference. The reason I've chose to run this year is I actually was going to try running a couple of years ago and had a sudden death in the family that made it just a bad timing for me. So my heart has been in it for several years, wanting to serve this community. I'm a business development specialist, and I work for the state of Minnesota and numerous agencies around the area doing startup businesses, helping people expand, do exit strategies, etc. But my heart is in the personal side of the work. And so I want to bring that perspective to City Council, the connectivity to the community, getting people feeling more that they have a voice that will be heard, and hopefully that will continue to strengthen our community going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Good evening. I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the other candidates for being here tonight also. I've done this a few times, unsuccessfully, but nonetheless, I still want to become involved in the community. I've been in the community since '93, for those of you who don't know me. So I've been in town for about 27 years in North Mankato. Been involved in a lot of organizations through the youth with my children. And as I've been watching the last 6-7 years of meetings and attending and seeing things happen, it's become very clear to me that my generation does not have a voice on this council. So that's the big reason that I want to run and become involved. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jim Whitlock, and I'm a candidate seeking re-election to the City Council of North Mankato for a second term. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and Lynn Solo for hosting this important event as we near the election. I also want to thank my fellow council members who have formed a great team of elected officials who work together to achieve the best quality of life for North Mankato residents. The reason I'm running again, I'm a small business owner of 42 years, own and operate Brickhouse Graphics in beautiful lower North Mankato. I'm the proud father of twin boys and husband to Karen. I have spent the last 2 decades in service with the community of North Mankato in several capacities. Most notably, I was a founder and creator of the Business on Belgrade Association, which transformed a struggling central business district into a regional destination for entertainment, food service, and family events like Blues and Bells on Belgrade. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitlock. I will now read a statement submitted by Mr. Steiner. He writes, after serving on the City Council for the past 24 years, I intend to run for another 4-year term to continue helping North Mankato grow and move forward. During my time on the council, North Mankato has seen wonderful growth with the Taylor Library, Police Annex, City Hall renovation, Fire Station 2, the Recycling Center, Caswell Park and its expansion, continuing Benson Park development, Bluff Park, our great trail system, continuing growth of our industrial park, and the tax-based benefits that go with it. The new Spring Lake Park swim facility and warming house, and new development in the downtown and Commerce Drive areas. We have a real capital improvement plan and plans to continue renovating our infrastructure, which of course is contingent upon the current COVID situation. I feel that as a council member over this 24-year time, I've played an integral part of this incredible growth, and I hope to continue to help the city move forward and grow for the next 4 years. Thank you all. Thank you for all you do for our democratic process. I regret that I will not be present this evening, but thank you for your time and effort. Respectfully submitted, Billy Steiner, North Mankato City Council member. So now we'll go to the questions. The first question is, what are the top challenges you see for North Mankato's mayor and council post-pandemic? And we'll ask Mr. Peterson to answer, please. And you have 2 minutes for your response.
I'd like to begin by just saying that I think the hardest part coming out of the pandemic, whenever that is, by the way, is just going to try to figure out what normal is again. And unfortunately, in government, normal is going to mean revenue. Where are our revenue streams coming from? What is going to come in the form of LGA? And just what decisions and what things can we choose to tackle right out of the gate based off not knowing what the funding is going to be. So the biggest challenge, I think, going forward, starting a new term here, is going to be the budget. That has been the levy that's been talked about, and then the budget going forward for the next year. So just really trying to understand what's going to be there and what services are still important, and then deciding maybe is there some services that aren't necessary just due to the new normal, which I think all of us want to know what that is. So the sooner the better.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock, same question.
Well, I've got to agree with Mr. Peterson. It's the finances. we don't know where we're going to be. We know where we are, but we don't know where we're going to be. We look at the LGA, local government aid, and we don't really know exactly where we're going to be. We have to set our budget by December 31st. And we don't know what the local government aid is going to be until June. So we're halfway through our cycle. But like any prudent homeowner or person that works on a budget, you have to budget for the unknown. We didn't know this was coming. The government stepped in and helped out with rent assistance and unemployment, and thank God that they were there. But between now and then, I don't know. So basically, it's finances. Until then, we really won't know.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin.
They both have expressed this very clearly, and I'm 100% in agreement with that being the top challenge for the city in general. I think in addition to the main budget itself, we're going to see a shift in some small business needs and being able to make resources available to small businesses that are either trying to start from scratch, pivot and do something new, and trying to attract new business into community. I also sense there could be a challenge in leveraging new large business moving into the community as well, because everybody's at a more disadvantaged, unstable situation. I'm also a little concerned with the challenge for law and order going forward. I'm seeing some examples of people kind of tipping their nose at basic rules of law and order in the community. And I'm also looking at the potential for challenges with shifting needs for affordable houses. I don't know exactly where we're at with sale of homes. I understand they're still moving pretty well, but I do think that it could be a challenge as we get past the pandemic as well.
Thank you. And Mr. Dean.
So certainly the budget is a concern, and the council has taken a position over the last several years that we will only budget for new growth. And so we have been blessed with new growth over the last several years, and this year's budget includes about $100,000 in new growth to our tax base, which is helping us as we go forward for this budget season. We also have some tax increment finance projects that are coming off and rolling onto the budget this year, adding another $100,000 to our budget. So we have some dollars there to work with. But as was alluded to, LGA's question. LGA is $1.6 million of our budget, and if the local or the state legislature would reduce that by a percentage, that will affect our choices going forward. So we have chosen to budget conservatively for the year going forward, but I am still optimistic of hoping to have at least one capital improvement project go forward because interest rates are low, and that is our opportunity to create economic stimulus for the economy. The other concern, or the other, I think, opportunity for us, or the other thing we need to be aware of, is our biggest competition is talent attraction. We have 57,000 jobs in the Mankato, North Mankato area. There are about 54,000 people living here. So if every mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa and child was working, we'd still be short of the workforce we need. So we are in competition with every other community for workforce. And coming out of the pandemic now, we have learned things like Zoom and how to do distance moving meetings and those things. So people can live anywhere now and find a job that they want to work with. And so people are going to choose where they want to live and work from there rather than have the job determine where they're going to be. And so there's some opportunity for us there, and why quality of life is still a major focus for the community and for the council to be able to attract those workers. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to question number 2. And Ms. Goodwin, you will be asked to respond first. This question comes from the public and was submitted online. How will you, as mayor or council person, address equity issues in housing, employment, and economic opportunities in North Mankato?
That's a really good question. Addressing equity is always a challenge, and the only response I have for that is to open up communication and to increase our networking, to allow people to have more of a voice, to allow them to weigh in on topics as they're being developed. Honestly, I think that's just my simplest answer, is to increase engagement and get more participation from the community on all of these topics.
Thank you. Mr. Dean, same question.
So equity has been a concern for probably about 15 years in this community. We started the Greater Diversity Council a number of years ago, 15 years ago at least, and that was an early look to the changing demographics of our community, brought forward by the universities in a monthly meeting that I attend. And so that was the start of the Greater Diversity Council, which has done great amounts of diversity outreach to all of our schools for all of our elementary children and going forward. We also participate in the Tapestry Project, which is with our law enforcement for outreach to the new arrivals that are in our community and continue to join us. And so those are some great opportunities that we've had for diversity education there. Housing is changing, and the demographics of housing requests are changing as well. And so with our Planning Commission, we have been trying over the last several years to address the opportunities for various types of housing to fit all types of families and all age demographics, from small houses to large houses to small lots, recognizing that the expensive housing is large relative to incomes in the community, and we want to continue to try and help with that. And then, we continue to support our police force because they are kind of our front line when it comes to those things. And we are the 20th safest city in the state, and have been one of the top 10 safest cities or top 20 safest cities for the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're pleased with that. We're really proud of that. And we look forward to working with our community going forward as it grows and changes.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock.
As far as equity and stuff in housing and employment and stuff, and like I say, the city of North Mankato is members of the Tapestry program and the Diversity Council. And the latest creation that we've come up with for North Mankato is the Somali men to form a soccer team. These are some gentlemen that we found out have been playing for quite a while, but didn't really have a place to play. And at the Caswell Sports Complex here, we've got a beautiful soccer field over here. And we invited them to come in. And they've got enough of people that are interested in soccer that want to form a league of their own. So we're going to try to integrate that into what the other leagues and stuff that we have. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson, same question.
So we have great programs. I can't speak on the Tapestry. I can't speak on the Economic Diversity Council because I haven't had the opportunity to partake in any of that or be in a position where I'm around that. But I know that North Mankato and the community have great programs that are available. My answer is really simple. It starts with whoever is sitting on the council, whoever our mayor is, and our administration, to make it warm and welcoming and create the environment for the people to want to come out and have conversation. It's that simple. We can't help people and we can't figure out their needs if they're not willing to come and talk to us about it. So we just need to encourage everyone, if they have something on their mind, find your representative, speak to them, figure out the best way to get your voice heard, and that's why I want to be on the council.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to question 3. And Mr. Whitlock, you will be the first person to respond. Across the country, most recently following the death of George Floyd, there have been deep community responses to systemic racism. A question coming from the public asks, how do you think racism affects life for people of color in North Mankato? And what, if any, changes would you recommend for the North Mankato Department of Public Safety?
Well, systemic racism is not new. It's something that's been ingrained in our being from the time of the creation of the United States. How does our police department fit into that? We have, going back to the Diversity Council, especially the Tapestry program, those are outreach people to welcome these people to our community. Look, there's bad people on both sides, whether white or black or whatever. It's just how you treat them and how they treat you. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Peterson.
Well, I wouldn't even be able to start to describe how that feels. It'd kind of be wrong of me to try to put that into words, to be in that position. My firm belief is it starts with the public safety and our police and our schools and the education system. It has to start there. There has to be this partnership. There is this partnership, but it has to foster and create things that the kids can come home and talk about, and force the families to have conversations about right and wrong, good and bad. No matter what we do, there's always going to be some sort of it. And it's not honestly for a council to most likely ever find the fix to it. But at the end of the day, we just need to, and it goes back to my earlier statements on the other questions, we need to have conversation. We need to be open and willing to talk about issues that maybe are not fun to talk about. And we just need to promote what our biggest things that we can promote is police and schools and that education and that link between the two. So, yeah, that's my view.
Thank you. I'll repeat the part of the question. How do you think racism affects life for people of color in North Mankato, and what, if any, changes would you recommend for the North Mankato Department of Public Safety? Mr. Dean?
Certainly, North Mankato and the Mankato area 30 years ago was very homogeneous in its appearance. That has changed dramatically over the last decade and a half or 2 decades. The University of Mankato State University has a huge international population of students, so we have a great influx of foreign students each year. Our people of color and our new arrivals within our community continues to grow. And quite honestly, the predictions going forward is people of color will reach 40% of the community within a decade or 15 years. So we need to be prepared for that. So that's why we were talking about earlier about the Tapestry Project, the Greater Diversity Council, trying to be on the front side of that and be proactive in it. We have continue to have community events, and as we continue to grow our events, it's important that we make sure that all members of our community are coming and joining in the community and having those opportunities to enjoy all those events that we're having. Mr. Whitlock alluded to the new Somali Soccer League. That's one of a great outreach opportunity there. There's 6 teams, so it's a growing group. From the police side, North Mankato is the quintessential community policing program. We start with a handshake, and that's where our police start. They are in the schools on a regular basis. They are at all of our events. We have our police reserve at all of our events, and they are there to support our community and anyone that's there. And when I've been at community events in the past, the biggest concern that they've had is that they were getting a few too many hugs. So, we have a great community. We have a welcoming and friendly community. We need to extend that to all of our members, but we're on the right track, I think.
Thank you very much. Ms. Goodwin.
I had to think about that just for a moment because I'm actually married to a person of color. And even he, who's been here all of his life, experiences life a little differently than I do simply by the color of his skin. And a big piece of the work that I do in business development is working with minorities, immigrants, refugees, people of color who are citizens for many, many years but still don't feel quite plugged in. And I've become aware that establishing programs and offering out, gatherings and stuff is wonderful. But if people come into your community and they're already feeling guarded because of how they were treated somewhere else, they're not going to integrate easily. You could live next door to a family of color 3 blocks down and not see them for 5 years because they aren't going to engage in the front lawn parties and the backyard barbecues necessarily. That's not speaking for everybody, but it's quite common. I see it in business development, and what I've learned is that I have to meet people where they are at, and I have to be intentional about it and seek them out one-on-one and offer myself to just listen to them and to submit myself to understand how their world works a little bit differently, whether they're from a different country or just from a different state. And I think that's one of the things that I love about what Mayor Dean's done in the past with his coffee sessions. I'd like to see us be purposeful about bringing some other people along with us. So being a good neighbor, if you live next to a person of color, a person from a different nationality, ask them to come be your coffee buddy. Bring people to the table so they feel like they can get to know the people sitting there in the suits and all of us with our white skin and born and raised in Minnesota, or at least America. As far as our police, I have never once, in all the years I've lived in North Mankato, never once heard a negative thing about treatment from a police officer to a citizen. That doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I just have never heard it, and I'm very well networked. So I just want to say a big kudos to them, but I'd like to have that same conversation with them as well. Human to human, how can you take that one step further into the community? Thank you.
Thank you. Too many hugs, huh? That sounds good. Never too many hugs. The fourth question will be, I'll begin with you, Mr. Dean. What steps do you see as necessary to address North Mankato's environmental issues and goals, including water quality, flood and erosion control, and air quality?
Thank you. So we are, as we are dealing with climate changes, we have noticed the last 5 years have been record wet years, and so we've had increased issues with erosion. So we have started, we just completed a ravine management study, trying to identify our problem areas so that we can address them going forward. There are about $12 million worth of erosion control projects on the docket that we have taken under consideration. We will begin whittling away at them over time because there is no funding for that beyond property taxes. And so we will be trying to add a little bit of that in each year as we do our capital improvement projects and work around the budget numbers that we have. We continue to work on water quality with holding ponds in the neighborhoods. We are adding a new infill development just to the north and east of our current location, and every one of those lots will either have a ravine or a water feature associated with those lots to help manage water management as we go forward. We are cognizant of the river. We work with the city of Mankato for sewer treatment, and so we are working with them on their current project to upgrade their facility there, and we're hoping that the legislature would pass the bonding bill this year because there's some dollars in there to start that upgrade process going forward because that facility is aging. We have been blessed in our community with clean industry, so we do not have a great deal of air pollution issues beyond typical car travel, but all those pieces of the puzzle are things that we continue to work with and are cognizant of.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin?
Thank you. I don't have a lot of expertise on how to capture water, keep it clean, all that, but I do have a friend who is an expert on that, Seth Yoakum with Aqualogical Resources, and we just had a conversation the other day about rain gardens and what individual homeowners can do with capturing the rainwater off their garage roof into a barrel for their gardens, and water features that can purify water without having to go through a chemical process, and I'm very excited about that. I'm also excited about the opportunity of us adding some pollinator gardens in the community wherever people are feeling the urge to be kind to bees, butterflies, and birds, etc. And that will use water differently as well because the root system is different and holds things. So I think that I actually have a lot to learn about how we manage our environmental situation around North Mankato, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that if I'm elected, obviously. But maybe not even then. I'll just study it anyway. I think it's too important to ignore. We're at that point in history where we cannot pretend or downplay the fact that the environment is kind of going sideways on us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock?
Well, as far as like the environment and water and air, and it's, you know, it's been inbred with us for many, many years to be kind to the land and the conservation of all natural resources is very, very important to all of us. You can't force someone to respect the land or not to, throw their garbage out the window. We've done a lot with our ravine management, which was really, really a problem, and it is a big cost, and the city is taking that on, and it has, stifled some of our budget because we have to deal with that stuff now. So that's really about all I've got to say about it. So.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
So the ravine management that's going on, I think, is great. I've lived on a ravine for 14 years, and there's always that question of, is there as much here this year as there was last year? But when it comes down to the ravines and the cost on them, it goes back to the homeowner quite a bit. You have to be a good, you have to take care of it. You chose to live there for a reason. So blowing your leaves down it, putting your dead brush down it, doing things that you shouldn't be doing is not going to help out. So as far as the ravine management, the flooding aspect of it, a lot of that needs to start at home. And you need to take responsibility for the piece of land that you own. And that goes a long way. I'm very concerned about climate change. I'm very concerned about the amount of rainfall and moisture and snow and everything we have in the different parts of the U.S. that has different events that they didn't have 10, 15 years ago. As far as North Mankato goes, I can't speak to our air quality, and I can't speak to some of that stuff just because as of now, from an outsider looking into the city and to the council and to how things are run, I'd just be speaking and speculating. But I do believe in our new developments and the holding ponds and what we've been doing. If you look at all the stuff up by Benson Park and the new developments up there, those are important. But again, to me personally, the ravines are a big issue, and I think as a city, we're doing a great job identifying them and trying to figure out a way to be helpful and work them into our capital projects.
Thank you all for your answers. The fifth question has come from the public. The North Mankato Area Planning Organization, known as MAPO, I guess, is developing a comprehensive transportation plan. How would you align transportation expenditures with efforts to reduce climate pollution and improve health? And I'll ask Mr. Peterson to respond.
That's tough. I don't know if there's a single or even a series of things that could really tackle that question. And from my experience and what I believe, it's because there is such a cost to transportation. We're a big town. Mankato's a bigger town, and there's a definite need. But I think we've seen over the course of the last couple of decades that the cost of running public transportation, you have to make a decision somewhere along the line whether that cost outweighs the benefit. And unfortunately, in times of budget constraints, I'll throw it out there, pandemics, all that stuff, transportation and things like that kind of fall by the wayside a little bit as far as public funding goes. I'm a big advocate for health, for walking, for biking, for doing those things you can. I'm very proud of the Safe Routes to School that has really taken a foothold in the last 4 or 5 years. All of that helps to a point, but purely public transportation, that's a tough question. I wish I had a better answer, but I don't.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock?
Thank you. Actually, I am a member of the Maple Board, and what Maple does is that we look at the transportation in this area. We've been that for about 7 years because we are statistically by population a metropolitan area. And with that, we look at the roads, the road conditions, the interchanges, the intersections, what's bad, what's good, what works, what doesn't. There's studies going on right now with the 169 corridor. Some of that study is going to be from the junction of 169 and 60 to about north of the Happy Chef restaurant. Some of that is from Belgrade Avenue to the just north of the Happy Chef. A lot of that concentration right now is concentrating on the 169-14 corridor out where McDonald's is. And there's things that have to change there because of how the structure of that road is. That exit from 169 to eastbound 14 is something hard to traverse in certain times of the day because of the traffic that is there. So biking trails, safe routes to school are things that have taken place within our city, the roundabouts, big time. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dean?
So the Maple Plan is something that both Mankato and North Mankato are working on. Jim is our council representative to that, and we appreciate all the work they're doing. I think the bottom line of that whole process is how do we streamline transportation for all users in a multimodal world to make sure that we're efficient and as effective as we can with that. North Mankato has installed electric vehicle charging station on Commerce Drive. When we redo Belgrade Avenue next year, we look forward to doing that there as well. And that looks to be an area that you'll see increasing growth, which is more environmental friendly. So we look forward to participating in that. We also would like to add one to the Caswell Park area as we redo that in the future. We are in the process of working with the city of Mankato right now on how to better tailor the mass transit system so it works better for our citizens and our businesses. And we're in the process of those talks and discussions right now. So hopefully that system will become a little bit more customizable and a little bit more user-friendly so we can enhance that as well. Trails and the trail system has been alluded to. I'm really proud of the fact that I started working with the local biking community when I first was elected mayor and started the trail system. We now have a very robust trail system. We'll be adding another couple miles to it this year when we redo Countryside Drive. Mankato, North Mankato have the second largest number of trail miles in the state, only behind the city of Minneapolis, which is the largest in the country. And so we're in a really great place there. And our plan with that is to connect all the schools and the parks together with bridges and with trails to make them safer for all of our students and our citizens to utilize. And we're on a great step towards that. So those are the things we can do to try and help improve our transportation system in the area.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin?
You guys have covered pretty much all the bases except one thing that is on my mind quite often, and we've talked, you and I, about Ruby Ride in the past, and the access to transportation for people who are aging, and the access to non-emergency medical rides, et cetera. In the last year and a half, I have helped 3 clients, not from the Mankato area, but from out like Fairmont or Faribault area, start non-emergency medical transportation companies. And they've gone from 1 car to one of the young men has 4 cars and a lift van within his first year. The business is that brisk. And so that's something I want to look for in North Mankato areas. Do we have enough of that kind of transportation for our aging population that either doesn't drive anymore, or if they're not well, that they have non-emergency medical transportation?
Thank you. And now, continuing just for a moment with our environmental interests and what is happening in your community, all of which sounds pretty wonderful, I'm going to have a flash round. So please just answer yes or no once I've asked the question, and I'll call your name. Would you support a citywide pollinator protection resolution? Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Whitlock?
Absolutely.
Great. The bees thank you. I thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Now, for the question number 7. What would you say to residents who would like to see a full-service grocery store added in North Mankato? And we'll begin with Mr. Whitlock.
It's an age-old question. We started with Jack and Jill on Belgrade Avenue, and that was one of the things when I looked at the area down there. Jack and Jill had just closed on Belgrade Avenue. The Happy Dance convenience store in the 200 block had closed. And that was when I kind of came up with the whole idea of the Business on Belgrade Association. I didn't know what we were going to call it. I didn't know how it was going to work. I didn't know where it was going to go. But it really all kind of started with a grocery store. Do we know what the future of grocery looks like? Absolutely not. Maybe this pandemic has showed us some idea of what it may look like. It may look like one of the Taylor buildings here, a nondescript, maybe something out around the golf course area that may just be kind of a launching pad for drone delivery. I'm just not really sure, but for North Mankato to have a grocery store, it needs to be far enough away from Cub Food, Hy-Vee that are downtown, because those are the draws from lower North Mankato. Upper North Mankato, I don't really know where they go, whether they go up to Hy-Vee on upper North Mankato, or if they go down to Hy-Vee and Cub, and I would imagine that. But it needs to be far distanced enough away to be able to make it worth and have a grocer in there that can do a large volume buying like Cub Food or Hy-Vee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson?
I would love to have a full-service grocery store up here, but I don't think we should fund it. And I think that's kind of the issues and the stuff that faces us. If North Mankato could support a grocery store, I believe Hy-Vee and Cub would be here already, up in upper north area. This is my honest opinion. With Instacart, Hy-Vee delivers, all the things that are going on for you to get your groceries, and more prevalent now than ever in the last 6 months. I just really don't see, unless a private, unless the money was all private, I don't just know how it would be to invest in a grocery store up here again. We've tried it. We've had a couple that we couldn't make it. And I really believe that the big box stores, if they would want one up here and believe it's viable, would already be here.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin?
That is one of the first questions that came across when I started doing some Facebook networking to see what people wanted in this community. Somebody said we want a grocery store, but they said specifically in lower North Mankato. So we had that conversation about how that has not been sustainable, because once people get in their car to go there, they go further across the bridge to get the lower prices and the bigger selection. It does make me wonder, though, if there isn't a far-reaching end of Upper North that couldn't fit in with the mileage requirements for a food desert area. It's something we could check into. There's grant money for that, the Good Food Grant from the USDA. And there's an actually example right now of a small community in Butterfield that's doing that exact thing. They took out part of a hardware store. They still have hardware in part of it, and the rest is dry goods, coolers and freezers full of food to take home. It's basically, there's no other food place in town except a gas station with some prepackaged stuff. And so now that could be a potential opportunity if there's enough support, but I don't know that we have a destination point in Upper North that's far enough away from the other groceries to qualify it as a food desert. But it's something that we could easily check into if there's enough demand from the community. I honestly don't believe that, especially in lower North Mankato, that people would spend enough dollars in any form of grocery store to make it financially viable. It's just too close to go to the other big stores.
Thank you. Mr. Dean.
You know, that I agree. It's the age-old question, and as I've been outdoor knocking again, that's one of the questions I get asked all the time. And it basically comes down to, when we've talked to grocers in the past to try and fulfill that need, it comes down to car counts. They are very specific on the number of travelers that have to go by their storefront, knowing that what percentage of that traveling public will stop in and what percentage of that public will buy. And so those numbers are pretty tight. And that is why I continue to support the indoor rec idea for Caswell Park. It's tough to run a year-round business on a 6-month facility. We have virtually enough car count to have a grocery store of about 40,000 square feet with what we have for summertime travel. Because we have the weekend traffic with the soccer and softball tournaments, volleyball tournaments, whatever else we have going on up here. However, for the 6 months of winter, the business travel during the week does not augment enough travel for the weekends to make that work. If we could get indoor rec here and have similar numbers of tournaments and drive that kind of business travel or sports tourism travel through the area, at that point we may be able to have a grocery store, additional bars, restaurants, whatever else up here. But it basically comes down to traffic. And while I know it's a desire of the community and we have continued to have conversations with various grocers, they are pretty secure on their numbers. And until our numbers match their numbers, we probably aren't going to get there. So we need to come up with strategy to add continued business, continued residential. And we've done a great job of that with our industrial park and with what we've got going, but we need to continue to pursue that if we're ever going to get the grocery store up here.
Thank you. This next question comes again from the public. How would you go about engaging the public in North Mankato city government with particular reference to the need for greater input and transparency? Mr. Dean, would you answer that first?
Certainly. So in the last 10 years, when I first started as mayor, I restored the Coffee with the Council, which was a program that my father had started when he was mayor back in the 80s and early 90s. When we were doing that on a monthly basis prior to this, where we've not been able to meet in public. And that's been very successful. Small groups, people to come in a non-formal setting and be able to ask and talk with the council or about any issues they have in mind. We have, prior to, in the last few years, we've had a number of public engagement sessions. We've invited people in to talk about different topics, comprehensive land use plan, strategic planning, number of things that we've had engagements on with the public, and those have been very successful. In the past, we had the monthly water bill and a biannual newsletter that went out that we continue to do, but we've added a weekly e-newsletter that's out. We have our KTV programming where we have a community update once a month. Myself and the city administrator are typically on K2OE once a month. And we're using Facebook, we're using Twitter to get our message out. We've recently added the Nixle system, which is an alert system that goes out on your cell phone. So those are all engagements that we are trying to be as transparent and get information out to the public in as many different formats and venues as we can, realizing that the public has changed how they acquire information. The vast majority of people no longer read the local newspaper, no longer watch the local television station, no longer listen to local radio. And so it makes engaging our citizens challenging. And so we continue to look for ways to do that. We have a full-time media specialist working for the city now to try and help that. And we look forward to suggestions on ways that we can engage with people. Bottom line, if you're trying to get a hold of the council or myself, there's still the phone call, there's still an email, there's still meet me after church or at the grocery store.
Thank you. This is a good one.
I think the city is doing a lot of wonderful things to reach people. And as I started saying earlier in our forum, that's one of the things that I've been learning in dealing with so many immigrant, minority, refugee population, people of color, aging people, because I've also done a lot of work with the Minnesota Board on Aging, and I've learned that the only way I'm going to reach those difficult people is I have to go where they are. I have to meet them where they are, and sometimes it's one or two at a time, and developing advocacy and champions within a group. So if I'm working with a Somalia group in Rochester, I find out who's the godfather of their neighborhood and build trust with them, and then they bring people to the table. And so I would advocate that in order to bring more people to the city council to offer their thoughts, to support or to challenge what's going on, that we have to learn different ways to meet people where they're at. So whether it's aging people in assisted living, and we go there and have coffee with them and talk to them and develop relationships. And if it's somebody who is a person or a family of color, that we learn how to integrate into what they're already doing and have those conversations. I think having a open online discussion page that's heavily moderated and controlled for nasty language, et cetera, is another. That back door I opened up on the Lower North Mankato neighborhood page just blew up, and I didn't respond to any of them, and 129 responses. Then I took them off that Facebook page and respond to them in private messaging, and phone calls just start coming, and there's still new ones on there yesterday, and this was 2 weeks ago when I asked just one simple question. It's about figuring out where people are hovering and hanging out and meeting them there. So not as to put more on the city, but just simply maybe shift gears a little bit. It might be a strategy worth considering.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock.
Thank you. I believe that transparency is probably one of the utmost primary resources that honesty that someone can bring forward, especially if they're running for a city, whether it's a city council or mayor, that if there's something going on, that there would be maybe like a lawsuit or something, or suing the city, that really needs to be brought forward in their campaign. And there is that is going on right now. But we have planning committees and weekly newsletters that the city puts out. We have public hearings on anything that we want to move forward on if it involves the public. We have resident phone calls, emails. We have the new North Mankato magazine, which is delivered to every door, every postal patron in the city of North Mankato. This is the second edition, magazine that we have put out. It comes out quarterly. This is a real help to the city. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Peterson?
I think the city does a really good job from social media engagement. I think when the Coffee with Council and inviting people in for engagement series when they were happening, I think they did good. I think one thing that needs to be changed again, to just show people and to make it easier for them, is to put their council workshops and work sessions back in the evening. It's really hard for people to take time off during the middle of the day to attend those sessions. But having them from noon to 1, switched a while ago, kind of felt like, hey, let's figure out a way not to get more people there. So I'd like to see that back in the evening again, to make it available to more people. I think the big thing is, though, if you're holding these events and your numbers are low, you have a choice to make. You can either pat yourself on the back and say, hey, we held an event, but no one wants to talk to us. Or you can figure out why people don't want to come and talk to you and go seek out the information and ask them, why does this form not work? Because there's people out there that have issues, have questions, whether they're valid or not, they're there. I think as a council and as a mayor, we should try to encourage all of our North Mankato businesses to stay here and not find out ways to ask questions about them and try to get them out of North Mankato. And, just be open and honest. And like I said, but if you're willing to go out and seek out the information, instead of just sitting back and saying, hey, we tried this, but there's no public input, that's the step. You got to put yourself out there. You ran for this position to be elected to help the city and the citizens. And there's people with questions. Just, you might have to go find them.
Thank you. The last question is up to you. If we have not asked something of you that you would like there to be addressed tonight, this is your chance. You're under no obligation to come up with a question, but maybe there is something that you feel would be good for the public to know through discussion. So I'll call on you. If you don't have anything that you'd like to add to the agenda tonight, just say so. Okay? Mr. Whitlock?
I really don't have anything to add tonight, other than this has been, for the last 4 years, it's been a very well-run machine. The city council, the mayor, the city administrator, and there's people say, well, you don't ask enough of questions during your council meetings. If we've got questions for it, we either go to our city administrator, our city attorney, our other department heads, and ask them, what do you see out there? How do you see that it's developing? And that usually helps us answer the questions prior to actually sitting in the meeting. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dean.
I guess a couple of clarifying points. I think Mr. Peterson was talking about making sure you're going out there. I've knocked on fully 80% of the doors in North Mankato so far this fall, and have stood and talked to every person that has come to the door and had time to have a conversation with me. Some have made suggestions, some have made complaints, some have had concerns. But I've actually stood out there and talked with those people at a one-to-one level on an ongoing basis. So I'm pretty comfortable where I think our community is at that point. Again, we've gone to great lengths to try and reach people. There's always more that can be done, and we are willing to try and continue to outreach to people. One other clarifying point to your B question earlier. I did sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge a number of years ago. We have installed pollinator gardens and restored the prairie at Bluff Park, at Benson Park, and at Spring Lake Park. So that's just another outreach area with the environment. And so we continue to do all the things that we can for the city. We're learning every day. I've brought up a number of issues over the years on how to reduce the property tax for people that are having low income rent, so they can drop their rent of the rent they charge by dropping their property taxes to make it more affordable for their tenants. Those are all projects that we've gone on to try and, again, improve the quality of North Mankato and the quality of life here. And so we will continue to reach out to people and try and reach them where they do live, and continue. Again, I think the best step we've done in the last 6 years has been to reduce the property tax rate, while reducing the city's the debt service. And so we are in a good place financially coming out of the pandemic, and I think that'll serve us well going into the next couple of years that are going to be a bit rough.
Thank you. Ms. Goodwin.
I don't really have any other questions. I'm just grateful to have learned as much as I've learned from all of the people who've been doing this for a long time, and hopeful to be part of this team going forward.
Thank you. Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, I don't have any specific questions that I would add to tonight. There's no points of clarification that I need to make, so.
Okay.
So the time now has come for candidates' closing remarks, which should be no longer than 1 minute in length. We will begin with Mr. Peterson.
Well, thanks again, the League of Women Voters, the candidates, for having me here tonight. I guess what I want people to know about me is I've tried many times to be involved, and I haven't been able to yet. But this is what I will offer anyone who votes for me. I will offer you a strong voice on the council. I will offer you a fresh perspective. Here's what I don't have that everyone else on the council or who's running has. I'm not self-employed, and I'm not a small business owner. So I have a totally different perspective of how things are going on out there than anyone else on this council or running for mayor. I go to work every day. I went to the same job for 22 years for the same company, started as a laborer, and now I manage one of them. So that's important to me. So I'll be a strong voice for North Mankato.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dion.
Well, I also want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum, and to all the viewers that are watching live and all those that will review this in the future. I also want to thank all the candidates for expressing your interest in taking a leadership role in our community. It's a sign of your passion for our community, and I think that's a healthy sign for how much people really appreciate the lifestyle that we have in North Mankato. I also want to congratulate you because it takes courage to stand up and run for election, and so I wish each of you good luck as this goes forward. For myself, I remain committed to North Mankato and dedicated to progress. I am proud and honored to have served as mayor the last 10 years, and I look forward to your continued support as we go forward into these interesting days coming out of the pandemic. So thank you for that, and I respectfully request your vote on November 3rd. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Mr. Whitlock.
Thank you. Again, my name is Jim Whitlock, and I'm asking for your vote to re-elect me to the City Council for a second 4-year term. We've accomplished a lot in the last 4 years and set a foundation that will continue our community moving forward. Business recruitment, quality of life, tax rate reduction, strategic planning, infrastructure investments have been made during my tenure. These critical investments provide the stage for our next series of improvements that I have the knowledge to achieve them. During my time on the City Council, our finances have continually improved. Our interaction with residents have been meaningful. Planning committees, weekly newsletters, public hearings, residential phone calls and emails. I follow up with action. Whether it's a complaint of snow removal or pedestrians, safety on North Ridge Drive, or questions about issues we are considering, I always provide a follow-up and action for the citizens' request. So please re-elect me to the North Mankato City Council on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Goodwin.
Well, I too have this strong passion for North Mankato. It's my home. It's where I find my friends and my family. It's where I find businesses to shop with. And it's a community that I want to do everything in my power to support and help it walk through the changing times that are most surely right in front of us and are coming. I believe strongly that my business development experience over the last 20 years and my experience as a community organizer working with state agencies and nonprofits will be very helpful. I too will provide a strong voice for the community, for the residents, so that they can feel heard by all of us as leaders and so that they bring a better sense of themselves into the community so there's less strife, more trust, and better engagements. Thank you again very much for having us here this evening, and I do ask for your vote.
Thank you. Once again, I will read Mr. Steiner's statement. He writes, after serving on the City Council for the past 24 years, I intend to run for another 4-year term to continue helping North Mankato grow and move forward. During my time on the council, North Mankato has seen wonderful growth with the Taylor Library, Police Annex, City Hall renovation, Fire Station number 2, the Recycling Center, Caswell Park and its expansion, continuing Benson Park development, Bluff Park, our great trail system, continuing growth of our industrial park and the tax-based benefits that go with it, the new Spring Lake Park swim facility and warming house, and new development in the downtown and Commerce Drive areas. We have a realistic capital improvement plan and plans to continue renovating our infrastructure, which of course is contingent upon the current COVID situation. I feel that as a council member over this 24-year time, I've played an integral part of this incredible growth, and I hope to continue to help the city move forward and grow for the next 4 years. Thank you all. Thank you for all you do for our democratic process. I regret that I will not be present, etc. And this is respectfully submitted by Billy Steiner, North Mankato City Council member. So this concludes the North Mankato City Council and Mayor Candidate Forum. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of St. Peter, thank you to all the candidates for your dedication to public service and for taking part in this forum. We also wish to thank the City of North Mankato for allowing the League to use its number 2 fire station. We love this fire station, where everyone involved could be socially distanced and safe. Thank you to KTV videographers, sorry if I mispronounced that, Seth and Matt, and League members Lynn Solo, Mary Kendall, Mira Frank, and Linda Whitty. If you need to register to vote or need more information about voting in Minnesota, we suggest you go to www.vote411, that's one word, vote411.org, for official election resources and updates. You will find a link on our St. Peter League's Facebook page. So thank you again, audience and candidates and my colleagues. And remember, every vote counts.